something that I want to make sure I don't leave out, which is a new product development, something that we have never seen come out of your brand, which I am excited to see in the future, hopefully next year at some point in the US.
Yeah.
And that is the creation of a new subwoofer.
Yeah.
So if you guys can follow us real quick, these guys are going to talk about what's special about this new subwoofer that you have. Ready? Come here. Come on, Mike.
I need to stand up.
Michael, you got to stand up, let my audience shine a light on it.
Bow down and do the talking. I don't think this is a representation of what we're going to introduce to the market. But this is a test bench. So these two cabinets, one in matte and one in shiny, is sort of like a precursor for what will come. So what is different about this is that most subwoofers on the market, they rely on building pressure. So they are maybe a closed cabinet, maybe a reflex, but they try to build a base as a pressure in the room. Here we have a slot-loaded dipole, and the target here is to put velocity into the air, create air motion rather than to create pressure. And by doing that, we take the stress away from the driver and let the driver work a lot easier. And that means that the speed we get from this is a lot better. So creating a subwoofer that actually times small drivers in a monitor, small mid-ranges, is a daunting task. And we have not really, in the course of the years, seen anything that can really do that. But I wanted to make a 2.1 system or 2.2 system because I think it's for a lot of people makes sense to have that in their world. Maybe they don't have room for big speakers, maybe they don't. So it's maybe easier to have a subwoofer. So a 2.1 system is very desirable from that aspect, but it needs to time. It needs to be able to play music. And the only way to do that was to go on a different path. The slot loaded creates the possibility of timing because you have the speed of the system. But also the crossover needs to have zero delay. And that rules out a DSP solution. DSPs, 20 milliseconds latency. And that's like, okay, you have a sub bass, but it's out there in the garage someplace because it's so delayed. Yeah. It's not really in sync with the music. The timing is not there. So when we created a product like the integrated amplifier, this is a preamplifier, but the integrated 880, we put in the crossover. We actually put it in already in the C580. We also have
in the old 580.
So we put them in, and we put them in to prepare for this. So we had the crossovers in our sort of like an add-on.
Right.
But we were not ready with this. It takes time to do things. So now we are getting ready, and then our electronics can support it as well. The AV electronics.
And right now they have, I believe, 4 or 6 drivers inside per side?
There's 4 drivers. There's 4 8-inch woofers in this.
4 8-inch, okay.
Yeah, with a carbon stiff membrane pushing like this and creating, and there's a slot where they play into the slot, and that means you push the air out here and you suck the air in the back, so it puts air in motion rather than creating pressure like most subwoofers do. And
I'm assuming you chose the 8-inch diameter of a subwoofer because you want the speed to be at the same level of your speakers.
You need a driver that is fast. If you take a big driver, you get something that is flexing. You get something that is inherently slow, and then the placement becomes difficult because if you have a slower sub because of a heavy driver, you need to pull the subs ahead of the system in order to time where you're sitting. So timing becomes an issue with a bigger driver.
They are going to have built-in amplification.
They will have the flexibility needed. So that means if you just have a line output on a preamp, you can use them because there will be a built-in filter in the subwoofer and an analog filter. And that will have similar to what we have in our preamp here, a crossover selectable, volume selectable. But it will not be like here, you can do everything with a remote control. It will be something you have to push buttons to set.
Got it.
So when you're not using our electronics, you lose flexibility. or convenience, but you don't lose flexibility. It will still be.
And you'll be able to integrate it, by the way, with other types of loudspeakers. So his goal is not just to make him exclusive to Borresen, right? He wants to have a product that can also perform with other brands. He was even mentioning to me that he feels this might be really good with Martin Logan. So again, I love the fact that you gave me that feedback, because sometimes we're very centered around the rest of the product lineup, but there might be people out there that just want your subs because they have their own speakers, and that's great to have that ability.
There will be many that would like our subs, because I think that everybody that wants to make a 2.1 or 2.2 system are facing the issue. It's very good for home theater, but it's not very good for music.
Agreed.
Because it doesn't time.
Agreed.
So most people that are looking into extending their bass down to the sub-regions, they don't have a subwoofer or an alternative on the market that can actually time. But you heard what this does.
Oh, absolutely. Blends beautiful. It disappears, just more body in the mid-range. I heard him actually briefly with the M3s. We did the entire experiment of no subs, and then we added the 4 subs. And it was like the room got larger, the mid-range had more body to it. The top end actually felt even, I dare to say, somehow more refined. I don't even know how that happens, but I just felt more stuff was inserted through that frequency range that I couldn't explain how everything evolves. I have loved the M3s, right? I've heard these speakers because of Next Level Hi-Fi. I think over the last 18 months, I've heard these speakers at shows, and I've always been blown away by them. I gotta say, always. But when I heard him with subs today, I cannot unhear what happened.
One thing that defines what we try to do is we try to put a level of explanation and a level of honesty into everything we do. And Lars pointed out to you that we are not so afraid of somebody copying. Because if somebody wants to copy where we go, they need to understand.
Right.
I think there's so many levels. You have seen some of the layers that we go through.
Yeah.
The impregnation of the coils, the selection of capacitors, all these things. And people need to understand in order to improve upon where we are. And I find that when companies change ownership, we often see them vanish. That's because the leaders of the company, the ones with the vision and the deep knowledge, they get out of it. And you can just hire somebody from the university and say, now next generation of speakers you will have to develop. It doesn't work that way. You need these. It takes how many years to get your experience?
Only 72 years.
I mean,